Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto's mom survived the Kyuubi attack? If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Chapter 1, The Terrible Night. Minato stood in the operating room with his tiny newborn son in his hands. Her pulse is dropping. She's losing too much blood. The doctor shouted and cast a medical jutsu. Two other doctors were casting medical jutsus as well, but even so from their panicked shouts it seemed she was fading away. He suddenly wished he'd gone and gotten Tsunade even if it had been against her will. Kushina had asked her friend to come deliver their child. The Sannin had sent back a message apologizing but saying she never wanted to see Konoha again. They had been disappointed but not worried. Kushina was in the best of health and Konoha had some of the finest medical facilities in the world. They'd assumed everything would be fine. Then they'd gotten word about the Kyuubi. Reports began to arrive about villages and towns laid to fiery ruin. Scouts were sent out and those not slaughtered by the beast sent back reports confirming the demon fox was heading straight for the village and would arrive in mere hours. He'd quickly realized that no ninjutsu could possibly defeat some powerful being. He'd decided the only hope was a sealing jutsu. But there was no seal known that could possibly overwhelm such a creature. Luckily Jiraiya happened to be in the village. Together they had come up with a solution that might work, the Shiki Fujin. They would call upon the power of a death god, a Shinigami to imprison the Kyuubi. But to work this ultimate sealing jutsu two things were required, a newborn child to act as the container and a human sacrifice. As Hokage he felt it fell upon him to make that sacrifice, and that it fell upon his son and heir to be the container. Kushina had railed against his decision, tearfully arguing against losing him and having her child used to imprison a demon. She had argued against his decision, but in the end she had admitted there was no choice. So as he and Jiraiya worked feverishly to complete the jutsu formula she was induced into labor. Only then had they realized her body was not as strong as they'd all thought. The stress of knowing he would die, of knowing what her baby would have to endure, the overwhelming fear of the coming apocalypse, and the pressure of her body being forced into labor. All of them had been too much. As he stood there powerless he could do no more than watch as Kushina's heartbeat continued to slow, until it stopped. The doctors had done all they could, but they hadn't been able to save her. She hadn't even been conscious so there had been no chance for a final goodbye. She had simply gone. Kushina, my love, he whispered. At that moment his son, Naruto began to cry. Minato looked down at the little baby. He wondered if somehow he knew on some instinctual level that he had lost his mother. Or if perhaps he was able to feel his father's pain. It'll be all right my son, he gently cradled him in his arms and held him close. It'll be all right. Atop the tower Minato arrived without warning. Jiraiya and Sarutobi turned to him. How is Kushina? Sarutobi asked. They were well aware of difficulties she'd been having during her labor. Minato looked at the former Hokage and gave a single sad shake of his head. Sarutobi lowered his eyes. I'm so sorry kid, she was a really good woman. Jiraiya said. Yes, she was, and I loved her. He looked out into the distance. But I have no time to mourn. It was night, but to the west it was as bright as morning. The giant fox was only a few miles away now. Each of his tails could be seen clearly. Out there in the fiery light the ninja of Konoha were sacrificing themselves to buy him the time he needed. They had no chance of defeating or even injuring the Kyuubi. They were a momentary distraction to the nine-tail, nothing more. On the rooftop a small table with lit candles had been set. Minato carefully put his son down and dipped a brush into an ink jar. He carefully but swiftly wrote out the seal on his son's belly. Are you sure about locking away only half of the chakra? Jiraiya asked. Minato nodded his head even as he continued to write the symbols. Naruto will need that strength someday. He'll be the greatest ninja this village has ever seen. He'll use the Kyuubi's might to protect Konoha. He'll be a hero. You know what kid? Jiraiya said softly. I bet he will. I mean how could he not be with who his parents are? He's not going to have any family, Minato said sadly. He'll be an orphan. He looked up at the two of them. I want the village to see him as a hero, but no matter what please watch out for him. Sarutobi nodded. Jiraiya smiled sadly. Don't worry, I promise you he won't grow up alone. Minato gave Jiraiya a look of relief. Thank you sensei, if you say that then I can be sure. At last it was ready. Minato made a single hand sign. Seal. The ink glowed for an instant and melded permanently into the baby's skin even as he continued to weep. Minato looked down at the little crying face. I'm so sorry my son. Jiraiya stepped up behind him. I'm sorry too kid, please forgive me. Minato felt a sudden vicious chop to the back of his head. Caught totally unaware it knocked him clean out. Sensei. Jiraiya caught him before he could hit the floor and carefully set him down. Hey, I wonder if this counts as assaulting the Hokage. He looked at Sarutobi with an amused grin. Well, it's not like I need to worry about being executed for it. He carefully took the squalling babe in his arms. Jiraiya, I beg you to let me do this. Sarutobi said. Of the three of us the village can most easily do without an old retired Hokage rather than a Sannin or the ruling Hokage. Sorry old man, but of the three of us you're the only one who doesn't know the jutsu and I don't have time to teach it you. Thanks for everything though, you were the best sensei a guy could ask for. If you could though, tell Tsunade something for me. That you love her. Jiraiya opened his mouth, but hesitated. Then he grinned. Nah, tell her I really wish I could have sucked those magnificent jugs even just once. He gave Sarutobi a body wink as though sharing a final naughty joke with him. Then he looked down at the baby. Don't worry Naruto, no matter what happens you're a very lucky little boy. You're going to grow up with the finest ninja and man I have ever known as your dad. Now let's go. Together they vanished in a swirl of wind and leaves. Minato came to about half an hour later. He rubbed the back of his head and noted he was still on the roof. Jiraiya, you idiot. He looked around. There was Sarutobi, in his arms was a sleeping baby. As Minato got to his feet he immediately noted how dark it was. Looking out beyond the wall he saw nothing but empty forest. He ran up to Sarutobi. What happened? Jiraiya. He didn't take my place did he? Sarutobi nodded sadly. He did Minato, he sacrificed himself and saved the entire village. The sealing was a success. Jiraiya sensei. In one night he had lost two of the most important people in the world to him. Why? Why did he do that? I was ready to make the sacrifice. He decided that you were needed Minato, by both the village and by your son. He did not want to deprive either of them of you. Please don't blame him or feel guilty, he only did what you were prepared to do. He sacrificed himself for the ones he loved. Here, Sarutobi handed over Naruto. There is still much to do, both tonight and in the days ahead. But at least Konoha and Naruto will have you there to guide and protect them. Minato looked down at his son's face. He was very surprised to see 3 tiny scars on each cheek. They looked like whiskers. Physical evidence of the possession. Minato wondered. Looking at his son he knew there would be some tough times in his future, but he would do everything he possibly could to help him through them. Leaning over he placed a warm kiss on his son's cheek. I love you Naruto. Chapter 2. A different course. It was morning. Minato sat wearily at the head of the council table. Though the village had survived there had been losses. Roughly 300 brave ninja had died, about double that had been wounded, filling Konoha Hospital and pressing its medical staff. Mercifully, the Kyuubi had not made it into the village itself. The night had been filled with weary civilians making their way home from the cliff shelters where they had been evacuated. Minato had overseen everything while keeping a careful eye on his son. Now that the sun was up he had called an emergency meeting of the council. There was nothing to be decided now, it was really just to give them a report on their status following the attack. Someone had found a crib and Naruto was peacefully asleep behind his father as he told the council members officially about Jiraiya's courageous sacrifice and of how the Kyuubi had been defeated. Of course they already knew, the story had spread like wildfire. So in short, Minato smothered a yawn. The danger to the village is now over. Despite the loss of Jiraiya and so many other brave souls Konoha has survived. Now, if there is nothing else I'll be taking my son home so I can get a few hours of sleep. I beg your pardon Hokage-sama, Uchiha Fugaku stood up. But there is something we need to discuss. He covered up another yawn. Trust Fugaku to want to drag things out. Yes, what is it? With respect Hokage-sama, is the crisis truly over? Is the village now completely safe? Minato frowned. His sleep-deprived brain did not like the sound of those questions. What do you mean? The Kyuubi is now safely contained within my son. But how can we be certain that the Kyuubi no longer poses a threat? My son is now what is referred to as a Gianchiriki, Minato began to explain. He has essentially become the Kyuubi's jailer. The Kyuubi will not be able to control or influence him in any way. There would be little point to the seal otherwise. As he grows older he will be able to draw some of the Kyuubi's chakra, but he will remain in control. Can you be absolutely certain of that? Fugaku questioned. Yes. The simple answer caught Fugaku a bit off guard. How can you be completely sure of such a thing? Because the two men who created the seal were myself and my sensei, the world's top 2 seal masters. We made that seal absolutely secure and I have no doubt whatsoever as to its strength. He arched an eyebrow. Will you accept my opinion or do you believe you know more about seals than I do? Up and down the table there was laughter and an embarrassed Fugaku darkened. He was not used to being openly mocked. With respect Hokage-sama, Fugaku continued. Since the child is your son you may not be objective. I believe given the potential danger posed we must make absolutely certain that the Kyuubi can never again threaten this village. Minato looked over at his sleeping son. What do you propose? Fugaku straightened his shoulders and faced the Yondaime. For the safety of this village I believe the container should be put to death and the threat permanently eliminated. There were gasps followed by utter silence. Minato sat there and looked at Fugaku for a moment. I am passing a law, he said quietly. As of this moment, anyone who threatens harm to my son whether by speech, written word, or action shall be put to death immediately. And that will specifically include members of this council. He looked directly at the Uchiha clan head. If you ever repeat those words or take any sort of action against my son I will kill you myself. Is that clear? Very clear Hokage-sama, Fugaku answered and sat down. Oh and one more thing, Minato said as he took Naruto out of his crib. Kushina and I were married a year and a half ago in secret. I'll have copies of the marriage certificate made available to all of you. I just want to make it official that Naruto's last name is Namikaze and he is my designated heir. Up and down the table heads bobbed in quiet acknowledgement. They all accepted this without question. Now I'll be going home to rest. I'll be back in 6 hours. Minato and his son were gone in flash of yellow. There you go, Minato carefully placed him down in the crib. Standing in the nursery made him grieve. Every single thing in this room had been picked out by him and Kushina. Oh my darling how I wish you were still here with me. Minato-sama. A woman entered the nursery without bothering to ask if she could. I thought I heard your voice. He smiled at the old woman in a maid's uniform. Hello Kaide, it's good to see you again. Come say hello to Naruto. Kaide approached and stood over the crib beside Minato. Is it true he is the Kyuubi? For once fear poked out of her normally calm exterior. Minato shook his head. No, he is not the Kyuubi. He is the Kyuubi's jailer. He is no more the Kyuubi than I am. Kaide looked at him unable to completely hide her nerves. Is there any chance the Kyuubi could escape? None, Minato said. That seal was made by me and sensei. It has layers of redundancy and fail-safes. There is absolutely no chance the seal could fail. And I'll be checking on it regularly even so. Believe me, I would not have brought him home if there were even a 1 in a million chance of seal failure. Kaide slowly nodded. The fear vanished and the normal calm exterior returned. If you say so Minato-sama then I believe you. I will remain in the nursery and take care of him. When he wakes he will likely be hungry. I have formula ready. She looked at Minato respectfully. Do you wish me to take charge of him or would you prefer I hire a nanny? You raised me when I lost my mother. I can't think of anyone else I'd rather have taking care of my son. She bowed to him. Thank you Minato-sama, I will do my best to be as good a caretaker with Naruto as I was with you. I am very sorry about Kushina and Jiraiya. She was a lovely woman and would have made a wonderful mother. He was a vile pervert but a good teacher and friend to you. Minato loved how Kaide was never afraid to tell him what she thought, even now. Thank you, I'm going to miss them both. He smothered a yawn. The memorial will be tomorrow. Kaide nodded. Get some sleep Minato-sama, I will watch after the little one. 2 days later the memorial was held. More than 300 photos were put on display, Kushina's and Jiraiya's among them. Among the people who attended the service were an exhausted Tsunade and Shizune. As soon as he saw her Minato couldn't help but feel anger. He would never know for sure if Kushina would have lived if Tsunade had been there, but he was sure the odds would have been higher. Though he spotted her, he made no effort to talk to her before the ceremony. She did however meet him to offer condolences. "I'm very sorry, Minato," Tsunade told him. "I see you managed to make it to the village after all," he said coldly. He knew he wasn't really being fair, but he couldn't seem to help it. Tsunade flinched a bit at her reception. She'd hoped to hear him call her auntie but didn't think that was going to happen. "I really am very sorry, Minato. If I'd had any idea anything like this would happen, I would have come." He nodded. He did believe that. "Is it true that your son is now the Kyuubi's container?" she asked. "Yes," Minato replied. "I was ready to sacrifice myself to perform the jutsu before sensei knocked me out. I felt it was my duty as Hokage. As my son and heir, I thought it was Naruto's duty to imprison the demon and try to use his power for the good of the village. As long as I'm here, why don't I give him a checkup? I would love to see him." Tsunade offered. "That won't be necessary, Tsunade," he said politely but brusquely. "My son has excellent doctors to look out for him, and I wouldn't want to keep you in this village you hate so much any longer than necessary. Minato, please excuse me." He walked past her to speak to some other mourners who wanted to pass on their wishes. Tsunade had secretly been hoping he would invite her to stay for a few days. She really did want to see the baby, and to talk to Minato and the old man. But after talking with Minato, she decided it would be better to just go. So she and Shizune left Konoha after only a few hours. Minato had passed the law barring any threat against his son but did not pass one to prevent people from talking about what he was. Minato wanted the villagers to see him as a hero, and so he did not object to their talking about the sacrifice he had made. Also, given the public nature of the Kyuubi's defeat at the hands of the gallant Jiraiya, he felt declaring it secret would be pointless. Surely everyone would find out eventually anyway, so why bother trying to keep it secret? Most of the people in the village accepted Naruto. Some really did see him as a hero. Most accepted him as the Yondaimi's son and believed he had done his duty to the village. With Minato alive, the vast majority were certain Naruto was not dangerous. During that first year, 89 people were executed for violating the Hokage's special law. Many of these were drunken idiots who screamed threats while in a bar or wandering home. Their intoxication was no defense. If they were unlucky enough to speak the threat where an Anbu could hear them, they were killed on the spot. If someone informed on them, they were arrested and their guilt or innocence was determined using mind-reading jutsus or interrogation methods. If they were innocent, they were sent home. If they were guilty, they were executed. The Hokage's law was enforced zealously. Of those 89, none were ninja and none of them were executed for taking any sort of threatening action against Naruto. No one was stupid enough to actually try and trespass onto the Namikaze estate. At least not until 3 years later. There had been a short border conflict with the forces of Kumo. Minato had offered to go to help his forces fight, but the council had been adamant their Hokage not leave the village. After some inconclusive battles, the war had fallen into a stalemate. At last the Raikage offered to negotiate a settlement and treaty of alliance. He sent a group of high-ranking ninja to Konoha to make peace. A single figure in black leapt over the iron fence and onto the private grounds. The estate was heavily forested, and so he had ample cover as he approached the great mansion. Over a year had been spent preparing this mission. The Raikage was obsessed with the Biju and wanted as much of their power as he could get. The chance to acquire the most powerful of all of them was too good to be passed up. The ninja came to a halt on the edge of the wood to take a look at the mansion before dashing over the open ground to it. He never suspected Minato was there until he felt a fist crash into the back of his skull. When he woke up, he was in chains in an Anbu interrogation cell. The instant he realized what had happened, he bit down hard. "Don't bother, the cyanide tablet was removed after you were captured," Minato said. The Cloud Nin looked up to see the Yondaime Hokage casually leaning against the far wall of his cell. "I take responsibility for my actions. I acted alone and was not under any sort of order." "Of course not, that's what the rest of your party said when they were arrested as well." "You arrested them. That was not how the game was played. When ninja were granted diplomatic status, only the one actually caught committing a crime were liable for arrest. That is a violation of diplomatic rights. I cancelled your diplomatic status the second I caught you trying to hurt my son. Oh, and by the way, you shouldn't try and sneak into a seal master's home. I have every inch of the grounds warded. I knew the moment you trespassed that you were out there. Do what you will with me Hokage-sama, but if you do not release the others the war will certainly be renewed. Oh, I know it will be. Minato said. For coming here to try and kidnap my son you and your entire party will be executed. And this time I'll be going to the front to take charge of things personally. Minato did go to the front despite the worries of the council. He gave the Cloud Ninja a full bloody taste of the Yellow Flash's fury. After a matter of weeks they understood just why the Iwa Nin had had a retreat on site order for him. The Raikage again sued for peace, this time sincerely. He also again requested an alliance with the fearsome Leaf Ninja. Minato agreed to this, thus giving Konoha alliances with both Suna and Kumo. That October 10th Minato celebrated the victory over the Kyuubi. To him this day would always be a mix of good and bad. It was Naruto's birthday and a day of salvation for Konoha. But it also marked the deaths of Kushina and Jiraiya. Being Hokage though he had to take part and be seen celebrating. With a drink in hand he watched as Naruto and Hinata were playing with Neji. Hiyashi and his brother Hizashi were nearby keeping an eye on them as they talked. Naruto was a very happy and outgoing child. He had no fear of the villagers and was being taught to love his home and to defend it. He told him stories about his mom and about Jiraiya sensei. He'd been very sad to learn that Whirlpool had been destroyed. Tragically Kushina's entire clan had been wiped out except for one uncle. He'd offered the man a place in his home but he had written just once to state his place was in Whirlpool. It was a shame, but since Whirlpool was now a province of Earth Country it would not be safe to let Naruto visit him. As the fireworks began Naruto ran to his side to watch them together. Hey daddy, are these really for me? Naruto asked excitedly. Smiling he picked his son up and put him on his shoulder. They sure on son, happy birthday. Yay. Minato was happy to see that honest joy. Despite all the tragedies of the past he still hoped the future might be bright and wondrous. Chapter 3, First Day. Minato was looking at the pile of paperwork on his desk. I think if I had really truly known how much paperwork was involved in this I would have let Orochimaru have this job. Well, maybe not but I would have been tempted. Thinking about Orochimaru made him grimace. Even after all these years they still had no idea where he was or what he was doing. Minato was certain that hoping he might have died somehow was nothing but wishful thinking. We'll probably only find him when he wants to be found, and that's likely to be a disaster. One of the unexpected consequences of Jiraiya's death had been the crippling of Konoha's spy network. During his many journeys Konoha's spymaster seemed to have recruited agents in nearly every corner of the elemental lands. But for reasons of security he had never committed anything to paper, preferring instead to rely on his keen memory. That had certainly provided an extra layer of security. But with his death all the agents he had personally recruited had no way and no one to pass on their information to. So all those sources were lost. 5 years after his death they were still rebuilding their spy network. No doubt they had missed a great deal that might have been useful, but they could do nothing about that. The door to his office opened without a knock and a blonde hurricane rushed in with a loud squeal. Daddy! Naruto shouted and ran over to his desk. Smiling Minato scooped up his son and planted him on his lap. Come to visit me today Naruto. Yeah, he said excitedly. Please forgive me Naruto-sama. Kaide entered and gave him a quick bow in apology. He insisted on seeing you today. No problem, Minato said with a grin. You know I don't mind, he can see me whenever he wants. He looked at Naruto and gave the boy a conspiratorial wink. It gives me an excuse not to work. The little boy began to laugh. Sounds like you're starting to get kind of lazy sensei. An Anbu with wild silver hair and a dog mask entered as well. Minato snorted. It's not laziness it's boredom. You try doing paperwork 8 hours a day. Kakashi seemed to shudder. I think I'd rather try and assassinate the Tsuchikage. Minato nodded his agreement. So how is Naruto's training going? Though only 5 he had been studying taijutsu and basic weapons for over a year now. Kakashi had volunteered to instruct him between missions for the Black Ops. When Kakashi was away Minato would usually train Naruto with a shadow clone. Not bad, Kakashi announced. As usual he has boundless energy and isn't afraid to try anything. Of course his attacks are too aggressive and sloppy most of the time. Hey, Naruto said with a pout. My attacks are good sensei. For a 5-year-old they are, Kakashi agreed pleasantly. But not for the next Hokage. Naruto got a stubborn look on his face. I am going to be the next Hokage. And I'm going to be the best Hokage ever. I'm going to protect and take care of the village just like my daddy. Kakashi tilted his head a bit and had a huge smile beneath his mask. Then you'll need to improve your fighting style, your dad was never sloppy. You never saw me when I was 5, Minato said with amusement. He looked at his son with a mix of pride and amusement. He'd explained to him once what it meant when people called him Hokage. Daddy, what's a Hokage? Well son, the Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village, the one chosen to lead. It is his job to protect and guide the village and the people who live here. Naruto had looked up at him with wide eyes. So you protect everyone and keep them safe. Minato nodded. I try to, though protecting the village sometimes requires sacrifices. He thought not only of Jiraiya but of other lesser-known ninja who had given their lives in service to Konoha. That's what I'm going to do. Naruto shouted. I'm going to be Hokage and protect everyone. And I'll be the best Hokage ever. That's a fine goal son, but being Hokage is very hard and requires a lot of sacrifices. You don't only have to be the best ninja in the village. You also have to be prepared to do whatever the village requires. That's what I'll do, Naruto said with absolute confidence. Minato looked at his son and knew there was no way he could understand just what being Hokage truly meant. The sacrifices it required. But for now, if that's what you want then I'll help you get there. Really daddy? Of course, he smiled and patted his son's head. After all, parents always believe in their children. Minato wondered if Naruto would still want this once he got older and came to understand the price that the title came with it. He stood up and put Naruto up on his shoulders. It's about lunch time, let's go get something to eat. Ramen, Naruto said immediately. No ramen, Kaide said sternly. It's not healthy to eat that too often. Ah, Naruto and Minato said in the same breath. 3 years later. Son, are you sure you want to wear that? Minato grinned. Absolutely. This way people will all know who I am. Naruto, you don't have to worry about being anonymous in this village. His son had on black pants with a black shirt with a gray trench coat. On the back of the trench coat Naruto had written in ink, Future Hokage. Naruto had actually asked if he could have a coat just like the one his father wore, but Minato had thought that a little much. Well, come on son, let's go. Naruto looked up at his father and nodded. Thanks for bringing me dad. I'm afraid I can't do this all the time, but since this is your first day I'll make an exception. Outside the Namikaze gate Hyuga Hinata waited nervously with her escort. Having grown up playing with Naruto and with her big brother, Neji, she was eager to begin this new experience beside him. Having always had Naruto and Neji cheering for her and believing in her, she had grown strong and confident. Sparring and training with the two of them, she had pushed herself hard to keep up. Her father was not one to offer excessive praise, but he felt she would be a fine clan head one day. That's if I'm eligible to be clan head, I won't be if I marry into another clan. Of course she already knew exactly who it was she wanted to marry. Picturing herself with Naruto-kun, she felt her face blush. She struggled to get that under control. She was a Hyuga and was supposed to always present a dignified face to the world. She still had memories of her mother who had passed away. Hinata wanted to be just like her, a beautiful, intelligent, capable woman who was always polite and well-mannered, but never ever superior. She was dressed in a white robe that was traditional for her clan and like the one her father wore. When she saw Naruto and his father appear, she managed not to blush. She offered a slight bow at their approach. Good morning Minato-san, good morning Naruto-kun. Good morning Hinata, Minato greeted. Hey Hinata-chan, what do you think of my outfit? He actually did a twirl for her to show it off. She of course spotted the writing on the back. Naruto-kun, I think you need more modesty. What do you mean Hinata-chan? He sounded upset. I have more modesty than anybody. Hinata put a hand over her mouth and giggled. She also made a mental note to explain to him later just what modesty meant. Kurenai had never met the Hokage before and bowed to him nervously. Good morning Hokage-sama. He returned her bow. And good morning to you Yuhi Kurenai. Kurenai felt deeply honored that he would not only return her bow but had known her name. Now let's get going, we wouldn't want the kids late on their very first day to the academy. Hinata quickly slid her arm into Naruto's so that they would walk arm in arm. This was how they normally walked together. For Naruto it was simply a habit that he shared with the girl he was closest to. For her it was the proper way to walk with someone who was your significant other. She understood that Naruto did not see her as anything other than a friend. But she didn't mind so long as he didn't see any other girl that way either. That thought made her frown. I wonder if she will be in our class. As they walked through the streets, a two-man ambush squad followed silently from the rooftops. Not that it seemed likely that there would be trouble. As the group walked along, people shouted and bowed, cried out wishes for long life and health. Wherever Minato went in the village he was greeted with adoration. The people of Konoha saw him not simply as their ruler but as their hero. Naruto saw how people looked at his father. The love that was there whenever he went out. That was what he wanted. He wanted the people to love him as they loved his father. Ino was pacing in the courtyard. Where is he? Sakura looked on with annoyance. It's still early, you're worried over nothing. Why is this such a big deal anyway? You saw him just a couple days ago. This is the first day of our ninja careers. Well, it is for him and me, you'll probably drop out. Hey! Sakura shouted angrily. But it's really important how we begin our time here together. I want him to see me for the amazing girl I am. I'd give up on that, Ino, a lazy voice said from behind her. At least until you learn how to perform a henge. Shut up, you lazy jerk. Ino smacked Shikamaru in the back of the head to reinforce how she felt. But why are you so worried? Choji asked between handfuls of chips. We're all good friends. That was true. Kaide would take Naruto to the park regularly to play with other children. They had all known each other for what seemed like forever. They'd all been to each other's birthday parties and gotten to know each other well. As friends. I don't want Naruto-kun to see me as just a playmate anymore. I want him to see the real me. Shikamaru lifted one eyebrow. Won't that make him want to stay away from you? Shut up. She bopped him on the head and Shika went down. As he was slowly getting up, they all heard a commotion. Looking around, Ino spotted the Hokage along with his son and another ninja she hadn't seen before. Naruto was here, and he had her clinging to him. Most of the children had never met the Hokage before, so they crowded around him pleading for his attention. Meanwhile, Naruto had spotted them and come over to say hi. As they approached, Ino glared at her rival. Hinata stared right back at her and held on to Naruto just a little tighter. Hey Sakura-chan, Ino-chan, Choji, and Shikamaru, are you okay? Fine, he said as he rubbed the top of his head. I was just attacked by a harpy, I'm used to it though. Huh, Ino sent him a dangerous look. Nothing, Shikamaru muttered. Oh Naruto-kun, Ino squealed. I just love your outfit, especially the coat. I love your self-confidence. Thanks, Naruto smiled and rubbed the back of his head. Hinata-chan thinks I need to be more modest. Well, what does she know? Ino said gleefully. I know how to tell Naruto-kun my honest opinion rather than just spewing whatever I think he wants to hear, Hinata said coolly. Ino stared at her. I just like showing him I support him. Hinata stared back placidly. I like giving him help when I think he needs it. Blue eyes were locked onto lavender ones with neither about to look away. Naruto sighed. I wish you two would learn to get along. Come on Hinata-chan, let's head in. Yes Naruto-kun, Hinata replied and went in with him arm in arm as Ino was forced to watch. Inside the classroom, a certain dark-haired boy was already seated. He watched as Naruto entered with Hinata, followed shortly by his playmates Sakura, Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru. The two of them had never met, but he knew Naruto by sight, as did everyone else in the village. You must be better than him, Sasuke. His father had told him. I want you to show the village the strength of our clan by being his superior. As Naruto walked past, Sasuke picked his moment and spoke up. So you're the Kyuubi. Naruto froze, and everyone else looked at him and at Sasuke nervously. Naruto slowly turned to look at the other boy. No, I'm the Kyuubi's jailer. He had always known what was inside of him, it was no secret. Since being little, his father had told him the story of the heroic Jiraiya and of the events of that night. Jiraiya had made a sacrifice to save not only the village but his dad. That was what had made him a hero. Now he had to make a sacrifice to protect everyone just like Jiraiya had, which meant he was a hero too. His father had always made that point very clear to him. As such, Naruto had never once seen anything wrong or shameful about being the Kyuubi's container. On the contrary, he took pride in knowing what he was doing to protect everyone. My dad didn't agree with the decision the Hokage made. Naruto slowly grinned at him. I guess that means you're Uchiha Sasuke, right? My dad told me what your dad thought. You're just lucky your father was the Hokage, otherwise you wouldn't be here now. Is that supposed to mean if some other baby had been used he would have had him killed? You really don't know my father, do you? Come on Naruto, let's take our seats. Hinata encouraged and was able to lead him up the steps and past the other boy. The others went as well except for Sakura, who held back a bit. That was mean, Sasuke-kun, she said quietly. He shrugged. It was the truth. Looking a little sad, Sakura went off to find a seat near her friends. Unknown to the children, both Iruka and Mizuki had witnessed the small altercation. I think this is going to be a long 4 years, Iruka sighed. Mizuki did not disagree. Chapter 4, The Uchiha. They were a week into their second semester at the academy and Sakura was again wondering if she really belonged. Her grades for the first semester had been disappointing. More than any other institution in Konoha, the academy was obsessed with ranks and standings. The students were constantly reminded that they were all in competition. And the competition was on completely even ground. Clans and social status had nothing to do with it. And yet, she glanced down the lunch table at Naruto. As always, Hinata was sitting in his right and Ino was on his left. The two girls were fierce rivals for his attention. Even though Naruto got no special privileges for being the Hokage's son, he was still head and shoulders above everyone else in the class. He was number 1 in academics as well as in physical training. Half their training involved physical activity and every Friday there would be spars. Every student had to fight every other, boys fought against girls and friends fought each other as well. Every match had to be fought to a conclusion with someone winning and someone losing. Mizuki Sesne would get very upset if he suspected anyone holding back. The spars were viewed as a good way to judge the potential fighting ability of the students. So far Naruto was undefeated, his record was a perfect 87-0. She'd faced him 3 times and he had knocked her unconscious in less than 10 seconds each time. He always took care not to hurt her, but she understood that in real battle she would be killed quickly. Her record in the spars was 15-72, putting her near the bottom. Fortunately she had a sharp mind and was near the top in academics. But with her poor showing in spars as well as in weapons training and physical endurance, her class rank had been 17 out of 30. She was struggling just to stay in the middle of the pack. She was painfully aware that of her group of friends she was the only one who was not from a ninja clan. Along with Naruto, Hinata with her gentle fist was 79-8 and clearly the strongest girl in class. Her class rank was 3. All the ranks were posted on a bulletin board to help encourage competition. People were all saying she was a powerful Hyuga just like her cousin Neji, who was in the class 1 year ahead. Neji sometimes joined them for lunch. Hinata and Naruto seemed very close. Then there was Ino. Her class rank was 7. Her fighting style was nowhere near as advanced as Hinata's, but she had a toughness to her that Sakura knew she lacked. Choji was 18, 1 spot below her, but she got the sense that his problem was a lack of killer instinct rather than a real lack of talent. Shikamaru was 29 out of 30 and didn't seem to care. Of all the students he had the least motivation and energy. Yet even he seemed to do well when he tried a little. All of them were from Konoha's clans and she wondered if she belonged with them. Everyone knew she was Ino's tag-along. Ino had found her crying and taken pity on her and brought into the circle of her friends. But even though Ino liked her and was a friend, she never pretended to see her as any sort of rival like she did Hinata. Sakura wondered why she tried so hard if she was never going to be anything but the weak tag-along. Is something wrong, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. You seem kind of down. Oh, she's probably just upset because Sasuke doesn't even know she's alive. Ino said. Shut up. Sakura snapped. That's not so. Oh, who are you trying to kid? Ino asked. Everyone knows you like him, even though he has zero interest in you. There's nothing wrong with liking someone, Sakura-chan, Hinata put in. If you like Sasuke you shouldn't give up on him even if he doesn't realize your feelings. She gave Naruto half a glance. That's right, Sakura-chan, even if he is a jerk it's cool if you like him. Naruto said. That's not nice, Naruto-kun, Hinata chided. What? He asked questioningly. I'm being supportive. Sakura tuned out the rest of the conversation as Ino started trying to one-up Hinata as she usually did. She looked across the cafeteria to where Sasuke was sitting with a couple other students. Even if he and Naruto did not get along, she still liked him. She liked his smile and his confidence. She didn't know why, but he had always been the boy she liked. He was ranked number 2 and saw himself as Naruto's rival. Naruto saw him as an annoyance, which only made Sasuke that much more furious. As for Sasuke not knowing her feelings, well, her friends had that much wrong, he did know about them. Flashback. She had caught him alone on his way back from class one day and mustered up the courage to tell him how she really felt. Sasuke-kun, I really like you. Can we please be friends? He had stopped and he had looked at her. She had known enough to recognize the look in his eyes as pity. I'm very sorry, Sakura, but you're just not good enough. And then he had walked away. With just those handful of words, all her self-doubt came crashing down on her. Maybe she really wasn't good enough. I'm going to quit, she said in a small voice. Wah, what did you say? Ino asked, suddenly startled out of her usual banter with Hinata. I said I'm going to quit, Sakura spoke in a more forceful tone. Why should I continue when it's obvious I'm never going to be anything but a weakling? But you're not weak, Sakura-chan, Hinata insisted. You can't just give up. Mousy is right, Ino said, earning a glare from Hinata. Even if you are weak, you can't just give up. That's right, Choji said between bites. It would be really troublesome if we had to find a new friend, Shikamaru added. It doesn't matter, Sakura said. I'm a weakling. What's the use when I'm so weak? If you don't want to be weak, then do something about it, Naruto said. That's easy for you to say, Naruto, you're already strong. She said. Sakura-chan, how do you think I got strong? I had to work at it. When I go home I train, and I train on weekends. Naruto told her. If you want to be strong, you have to make a commitment and work. There are no shortcuts. Or you can be lazy and not care, Shikamaru offered. Hinata ignored him and spoke up. Naruto-kun is right, my fighting ability is the result of endless hours of hard training and sparring. But you have the Byakugan, you have a bloodline. My Byakugan would not help me if I were not well trained in Gentle Fist. Without my training I would not be able to crush Ino the way I do. Hinata was 3-0, all the spars ending in under a minute. Hey, Ino snapped. I don't have a bloodline, Naruto said. And my huge chakra reserves aren't any use while I use taijutsu. My fighting skill is from nothing but hard work and training. He gave her a big smile. Why don't you come and train with me? I guarantee me and my dad can help you get strong. She stared at him. You'd let me train with your father, the Lord Hokage, the strongest ninja in the history of the village. Sure, Sakura-chan, he said easily. I know dad won't mind if it's to help a friend. Okay, if it's really alright. She was suddenly feeling a lot better about herself. Just as class was winding down, an Anbu came and had a whispered conversation with Iruka-sensei. What? Iruka said in surprise. The Anbu whispered some more and Iruka slowly nodded. The Anbu then left and Iruka turned to the class. Class, we're going to do some special training today. Is this going to be quick? Shikamaru spoke up. Class is over in 20 minutes. Actually all the students will be staying in the academy overnight. What did Iruka just say? I'll miss dinner. Mom will kill me. The students were all muttering, confused. Iruka waved his hands about until they finally quieted. There's no need for any of you to worry, all your families are being informed about the extended training session. We'll be providing all of you sleeping bags and field rations. It'll be a taste of what ninja do in the field while on a real mission. The students were still muttering. Also, since you'll be here all night, there will be no class tomorrow. The idea of no class improved some of the outlooks. The students began to think it might be sort of fun. I think something bad is going on, Naruto said quietly. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Naruto looked at her. Though still a child, his dad had taught him about looking underneath the underneath. The key was to really pay attention to the clues around you and to think about them logically. He leaned close to Hinata and whispered to her. This wasn't planned, Hinata-chan. This training session wasn't the teacher's idea. That Anbu came here to pass on orders that the students be kept here overnight. Why would they do that? Hinata asked. Naruto shrugged. No idea, except something bad is going to happen and they want to keep us all safe. Fugaku was pleased to see well over 100 ninja present. He would have been even happier if the only people missing were not Itachi and his best friend Shisui, who he had asked to watch him. His oldest son had been acting a bit erratically lately and Fugaku was growing concerned. But except for them, every Uchiha ninja active or retired was present for this final meeting. As all of you know, Fugaku spoke. It is well past the time that our clan took what was rightfully ours. There was loud applause and shouts of agreement. That was when the doors of the hall were kicked down. The Uchihas all jumped to their feet as Anbu poured in with weapons at the ready. They quickly found themselves surrounded by more than 300 Anbu. What is rightfully yours? An angry voice called from the main doorway. In strode the Yondaime. He wasn't in his ceremonial robes, he had on the familiar trench coat, dark pants, and Jonin vest that he wore to battle. And do you think the whole village is rightfully yours? Hokage-sama, what is the meaning of this? Please don't bother to play the innocent Fugaku, Minato told him. I know about your little plot. Even as we speak, your allies are being arrested. They'll stand trial and be executed. But I can't take that risk with you, Uchiha, that would be too dangerous. What is it you intend to do? Fugaku asked. I had actually considered killing the entire adult population in the Uchiha compound and wiping out the clan except for the children. However, I'll spare the civilians even though they knew about the plot. They're no threat after all. But I will strip the Uchiha of clan status for this, and your name will be a disgrace. As for all of you ninja, I sentence you to death for conspiracy to commit treason and murder. Sentence to be carried out immediately. The Anbu let fly with hundreds of trikunai. These all missed as the Uchiha ninja were able to dodge them with ease. But they were not meant to kill, only to fill the hall with seals. The Yondaime would do the killing. Hiraishin no Jutsu. He vanished in a yellow flash and the traitors in the hall began to die. It was over in seconds. On the roof of a nearby building, an Anbu with a raven's mask waited in silence. When he saw his Hokage appeared before him drenched in blood, he knew. It's over, Itachi, thanks to you. I take no pride in this, Itachi replied. The thought he had caused so many of his kin to be slaughtered sickened him. He had even been forced to kill his best friend in order to alert the Hokage. I didn't think you would, Minato replied. But you did what you had to, and for that you have my thanks. You will honor your word, Hokage-sama? Itachi asked. The civilians and students will be spared. My mother, my brother, my cousin. I was never one for pointless slaughter, Itachi. Minato replied. No one else has to die, but the entire clan will be punished for this. I will strip away clan status and confiscate all the lands that the first Hokage gave the Uchiha. I expect come tomorrow the Uchiha will be hated and despised. Itachi could only nod. Given what my father attempted, that seems only fitting. But I thank you for sparing those you could, Hokage-sama. In the following days the truth of what had happened became known. The events of that night would become known not as the Uchiha massacre, but as the Uchiha revolt. And in the village of Konoha the name Uchiha became synonymous with traitor. Chapter 5, Son of Traitors. I don't believe you. Sasuke screamed. Along with his mother and older brother, his 11-year-old cousin Hisa was there too. She was quietly sobbing. Having lost her father, she was now an orphan. His mom had invited her to come stay with them. It is true, Sasuke, Itachi said calmly. He was still dressed in his Anbu uniform. Father was planning a coup attempt. Every adult in the clan ninja and civilian knew about it. That is the reason father and the others were killed. It's true, Makoto said softly and lowered her head in shame. Your father felt our clan should rule the village and so he plotted treason. We intended to betray the village, to our eternal shame. Sasuke stared at his broken mother. He might call his brother a liar, but he couldn't believe Kasan would ever lie about something like this. Father was a traitor. His father was his role model. He represented everything that was just and noble about their great clan. Everyone was a traitor, Sasuke, Itachi said coldly. Had you been a few years older you would have been involved as well. Why are you alive, Aniki? Sasuke demanded. Father and uncle and every other ninja of the clan are dead except for you. How come? As he asked that, Makoto began to silently weep. I am alive because I was the one to inform the Hokage of father's plot. Itachi replied coolly. Sasuke gasped and pointed an accusing finger at his revered older brother. You betrayed father and the clan. You're a traitor. Itachi answered the accusation with a passionless stare. No, I kept my oath to my Hokage and my village by doing my duty as a leaf ninja and an Anbu. I discovered a treasonous plot and reported it. It is only because I was loyal that the Hokage agreed to spare the civilian adults, though they are just as guilty as the ninja. What are you proud of what you did? Sasuke accused. No, I take no satisfaction in anything that has happened. But I did what was right, my conscience is clean. Sasuke. Sasuke didn't know what to say. All his life he had admired his older brother and longed to win his father's approval. Now father was dead, killed by the Hokage's own hand. His death a disgraceful one. And his brother was the one who had caused it all. You shouldn't have said anything. Sasuke snapped. You should have been loyal to father and to the clan. Sasuke, don't say that. Makoto looked nervously between her two sons. Do you realize, Sasuke, that you have just committed treason? Itachi said as calm as always. Maybe you should kill me then. That is your duty, right? Itachi looked at him coldly. I will forget what you said this once, but never say anything like that again. He turned around and left the room. Sasuke, I beg you, don't do anything to cause trouble. His mother pleaded. I couldn't bear to lose you too. Sasuke looked at her but said nothing. Sasuke answered when there was a knock at the door. He frowned to see 3 Anbu standing there. What the hell do you want? Watch your mouth, traitor, one of the Anbu answered. Except for Itachi, every last one of you Uchiha are scum. Sasuke gaped at him. No one had ever talked to him like that. Do you know who I am? Sasuke said angrily. Yeah, you're a traitor and the son of traitors. The Anbu tossed a letter at him from a stack he had in his hands. Give that to your mother, you've been served. The Anbu then proceeded to the next house. Makoto was reading the letter the Anbu had delivered. It's a formal notice that we no longer own this house or any other property in the compound. If we want to keep living here, we will have to start paying rent. They can't do that. My great-grandfather built this house. It's been ours for as long as there's been a village. The Hokage can do whatever he wants, son, Makoto explained patiently. All the land in the compound was given to the clan on condition we live in the village and serve it faithfully. When we broke our part of that bargain, we lost all claim to this land. She sighed. Not only that, we are no longer a clan in the eyes of the village, we will no longer have our seat on the council or our special rights. All the funds in the clan treasury have also been confiscated as punishment. So they say our house isn't ours and then they rob us too. Sasuke said furiously. The Hokage has no right to do any of this. He does, son, Makoto told him. Son, we are not being wrongfully persecuted. I know you don't want to hear this, but the fact is we are guilty. By law, the Hokage would have been within his rights to have killed everyone who knew of the plot and failed to report it. That includes me and all your aunts and uncles who are still alive. Anything the Hokage does short of that is a mercy, no matter how it seems. I won't accept that. You're going to have to, Sasuke, Makoto told him gently. Part of being an adult is seeing the world as it is and not as we would like it to be. The bodies of those killed in the revolt were returned to the families. There was a quiet and solemn memorial service attended only by family members. Friends of the clan did not want to be seen mourning the deaths of traitors. Makoto had decided it would be best to keep Sasuke and Hisa home from school for a week to let some of the passions cool down on both sides. While he was home, he heard some explosions coming from nearby. Sasuke joined a small crowd at the edge of the compound. They were watching a group of 20 ninja working on the wall that separated the Uchiha compound from the rest of the village. Most of them just made sure to keep people a safe distance as 2 others placed a few explosive notes along the base of the wall. The 2 of them backed away. Clear. One shouted once they were a safe distance. The other nodded. Fire in the hole, he shouted. The notes then went off with a carefully controlled explosion. A section of the wall about 15 feet long blew up and was reduced to rubble. What's going on here? Sasuke demanded. What do you think you're doing? One of the ninja dealing with keeping people a safe distance looked at him dismissively. It's the Hokage's orders, this wall is to come down immediately. It's about time you damn Uchihas learned you're part of the village and not separate from it. You can't do this. You have no right. Sasuke tried to push his way past. He was completely surprised when a fist smashed his face. He found himself on the ground with a bloody nose. You damn Uchihas and your damn rights. The ninja shouted furiously. It's time you learn that your rights aren't shit anymore. You damn pack of traitors are just lucky the Hokage is as merciful as he is. Get it through those thick skulls, you're not on top anymore. Now get out of here before I arrest you and haul you in. Sasuke got up to his feet. The taste of blood and bitter humiliation were in his mouth. As he walked back to the crowd, people quickly gathered around to help him and tell him they were proud of his courage. The fact that at least his clan still cared for him was his only consolation. Where are you going, scum? You filthy pig. Dirty traitor. Sasuke was walking to class after a week. Before this day he had always received greetings and polite nods from the people along the way. Sometimes grocers or bakers would even come up to him with a tasty treat. He had never thought twice about it, he had just assumed that was how things were supposed to be. Now those very same people were pouring their abuse at him. His mother had tried to get him to wear a different set of clothes and to go to the academy by a different route. He'd refused. He was Uchiha Sasuke, proud son of Uchiha Fugaku, and he was damned if he would pretend to be anything less. He had put on his shorts and dark blue jacket and left the now wall-less compound with his head held high. Walking from his house through the compound, everything had been normal. His clansmen had all wished him well and told him how proud they all were of him. But the moment he left the compound, everything changed. Even at the shouts of abuse he held his head high and refused to hurry. He walked at his usual pace even when small rocks or pieces of rotted fruit were thrown at him. His cousin had worn different clothing and left 20 minutes early by a different route. He didn't blame her for that. If she wanted to keep a low profile, he would not hold it against her. After all, now more than ever all the Uchiha needed to stick together. When he reached the academy, his head was still unbowed and his face was locked into a grim visage. His jacket and shorts were covered with stains from things thrown at him, but he refused to acknowledge any of it. As he entered the courtyard though, he saw the way the kids were looking at him. Obviously the opinions of their parents had been passed along. Well, look what we have here, a dirty traitor. A fourth-year student Sasuke didn't know said. Almost as if by magic, Sasuke was surrounded by a menacing crowd of older students. Sasuke looked directly at the loudmouth boy in front of him, ignoring all the others. Get out of my way, he said calmly. The boy looked unbelieving. What did you just say to me, traitor? I said get out of my way, Sasuke replied. Will you listen to the almighty Uchiha? The boy mocked. What are you going to do if I don't get out of your way? I'll just have to go through you, Sasuke replied and readied himself. There was no way he could deal with all of them, but the jerk in front of him was going to regret what he'd said. Before the older boy could reply, he was shoved to the side. Is there a problem here? Naruto asked coldly. Standing right behind him were Hinata and Neji. Both had the Byakugan active and were looking very intimidating. Sasuke is a student and has every right to be here. Seeing who it was, the older boys all quickly nodded their agreement and dispersed. Naruto looked over at Sasuke. Okay. I didn't need your help, Sasuke answered tightly. That's not how it looked to us, Neji said with a grin. Sasuke ignored him and instead focused on Naruto. I don't need any help from the son of the man who killed my father. Naruto felt his jaw tighten. What my dad did was justice. I'm sorry for your loss, Sasuke, but I don't apologize for it. Sasuke glared at him murderously. I'm going to surpass you, and when I do I'll show everyone in this village just how great my clan is. What clan? Neji said innocently. Neji. Hinata chided. Sorry, he mumbled. To Sasuke's utter irritation, Naruto grinned at him. Good, do your absolute best. Angrily, Sasuke walked straight ahead, forcing Naruto to step out of his way. Pleasant guy, Neji said. He has suffered a lot, it can't be easy for him. Hinata said. She looked nervously over at Naruto. I think he really hates you, Naruto. I felt killer intent from him just now. Yeah, so did I, Naruto said. But what can I do about it? I mean, if I try and be friends with him, it will probably only make him hate me more. At least if he only hates me, it will help him focus and deal with things. Honestly, I feel sorry for him. Hinata sighed. The whole situation was a mess. They would have to deal with it as best they could. Chapter 6. Last day. Sakura tripped and fell. Lying on the dirt trail, she panted and struggled to get up. She was drenched in sweat and completely wiped out. The others are having no problem. Am I really so much weaker? Are you all right, Sakura? Naruto asked. When he had noticed she wasn't with them, he had come back to check on her. And when he'd turned around, the others had too. Let me help you up, Sakura-chan, Hinata said with a gentle smile and got her back to her feet. If you wanted to take a nap you should have said so, Neji said with a smirk. When the Hokage came to check on her she looked down feeling embarrassed. It was bad enough coming off as weak in front of her teammates but doing so in front of the Great Yellow Flash was humiliating. The Hokage squatted down to put himself at eye level with her. He was dressed in plain gray sweats and had an easy friendly smile. He saw the way she was breathing hard and how her legs trembled. How are you feeling, Sakura? I'm fine, Hokage-sama. I'm very sorry for interrupting the workout. Laughing a bit he reached out and patted her head. No problem, I think you've done enough for today though. He looked at his son and the other children, the three of them often trained together. Why don't you go on and I'll bring Sakura back to the house. Oh, K, Dad, Naruto said and bolted. Race you to the practice ground. Cheater. Neji shouted and ran after him. Hinata shook her head and chased after both of them. Once they were out of sight he picked up Sakura in his arms and began carrying her back to the mansion. You rest for a while, have some water and rehydrate. She blushed. The Hokage of Konoha was carrying her and telling her to rest. I am so sorry, Hokage-sama. I shouldn't have come here. He looked at the little girl. All right, first there's no need for you to address me as Hokage right now. Do I look like I'm wearing my robes? Second, there's no need to be upset. You are more than welcome here and you are not causing me any trouble at all. After all, he gave her a reassuring grin. My job is to take care of all the people in this village, so helping you is no problem. Naruto wants to help you become a great ninja and so do I. But I can't keep up with them. She felt on the verge of tears. That's not the point, Sakura, he told her quietly. The point is to always do your best. Naruto, Neji, and Hinata have been doing this level of physical training for years now. You shouldn't compare yourself to them, that's not a fair comparison. It would be like trying to compare your abilities to mine or any other ninjas. I guess that makes sense. He nodded approvingly. Instead compare where you are now to where you were before. Have you improved yourself? That is the only comparison that you need to worry about. But, I'm slowing everyone down. This isn't combat, Sakura, he told her kindly. It's training. The point is to help everyone get stronger. You aren't holding anyone back, I promise. Just do the best you can and I'll help you as much as I can. How's that sound? She slowly nodded. I promise to do my best, Hokage-sama. Over time Sakura did begin to improve. Even Ino started to notice. Sasuke also improved. He worked very hard to build up his skills and physical strength. He was consumed by the single-minded desire to get stronger. But no matter how hard he worked he could not seem to close the gap between himself and Naruto. He lost every spar against him. He could beat everyone else, including Hinata, but not Naruto. No matter how he worked at it he remained number 2. While in class he deliberately separated himself from his classmates. He insisted on wearing the same blue jacket with the large Uchiha symbol emblazoned on it. No matter how much anger or abuse it brought down on his head he refused to change. He kept his pride in his name and family and the more people condemned the stronger he held onto it. He isolated himself from everyone except his family members. In school everyone admired and respected his skills, but no one really liked him anymore. Except for one person. As he was heading home Sasuke spotted Sakura there waiting for him. What do you want, Sakura? He did not stop to talk to her but continued on his way. She was forced to fall into step beside him. My birthday is next Wednesday, would you like to come? She asked him hopefully. No, he answered and kept walking. She followed him refusing to just give up. She was nothing if not persistent. It'll be a lot of fun. There's going to be music and dancing and party games. And you don't have to bring me a present if you don't want to. Sasuke thought of something and stopped. Oh, K, really? She said excitedly. She hadn't thought he would ever say yes. She'd been trying to get him to be friends with her but every effort always got rejected. But there's one condition, he told her. Anything, Sasuke. You can't invite Naruto. What do you mean? I mean just what I said, I'll come but only if you don't invite Naruto. But he's a close friend of mine. It's thanks to training with him that I've gotten so much stronger. In her class she was now ranked 8th, one spot behind Ino. She was considered the 3rd strongest girl in class. I've already invited him and he's said yes. Then uninvite him, Sasuke said coldly. Sakura looked at him with sad eyes. I can't do that. I won't do that. Then I guess I won't be coming to your dumb party. He began to walk away. Why do you have to be this way? Naruto doesn't have anything against you. I have something against him, he muttered as he went. Sakura stood where she was and watched him go. She still cared for him, but after that she stopped asking him to become friends with her. She was not willing to pay the price his friendship would cost. The 4 years of the academy passed in relative peace. Led by her great Hokage and secure in her alliances, Konoha was recognized as the strongest of the great ninja villages and prospered. Clients from all over the elemental lands sought out Leaf Ninja for the most difficult and highest paying contracts. The last day of class finally came. Naruto entered room 101 where Iruka and Mizuki were both seated behind a desk covered in leaf hittites. Hello Naruto, Iruka said pleasantly. This is the final part of the graduation test. Please make 3 clones for us. Hi sensei, he ran through the hand signs with barely a thought. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With a puff of smoke 3 copies of him appeared. Mizuki nodded and wrote something down on a clipboard. Perfect, as I would expect from our Rookie of the Year. Iruka nodded, the test was really just a formality. Only a very weak ninja could fail it. Congratulations Naruto. You are now officially a genin and an adult of this village. Please take a Hittite. Naruto eagerly snatched one up and tied it around his forehead. He then turned to his 2 teachers and bowed to each of them. Thank you for all your help and instruction, Iruka-sensei, Mizuki-sensei. Both instructors nodded in return. Please send Hinata in next. Iruka instructed. When Naruto returned to the main classroom, people simply nodded to him. A few called congratulations. It was not that big a deal as everyone had known he would pass easily. You're up Hinata, he called. Oh, okay, she got up and they passed. Congratulations on passing Naruto. Before he knew it, she leaned up and planted a quick kiss on his cheek. Wah, he stared at his best friend wondering why she had just done that. Hey, Ino barked. What's the big idea kissing him? What? Hinata said innocently. It's just a nice way to say, congratulations. You don't mind do you Naruto-kun? Ah, no of course not. By the way Naruto-kun, you're blushing. Hinata hurried past him with a happy smile planted on her face. When class let out, many of the parents were outside waiting to congratulate their children. Among them were Hiyashi and the Hokage in his robes of state. Hiyashi looked at his daughter. She was dressed in her usual all-black outfit with her Hittite around her neck. Well done Hinata, Hiyashi said. He had on a very slight grin. For him this was a huge emotional display. I am pleased with you. Thank you father, Hinata said with a confident grin. She knew her father was really happy even if he did not like to show it. Good going son, Minato said happily and rubbed the top of his head. Thanks dad. Naruto had a huge smile on his face. Now I'm one step closer to being Hokage. Minato had a good laugh. Easy son, there's still a long way to go. Across the courtyard Sasuke looked on as he was with his mom and cousin Hisa. She was a genin now and had been for 3 years. She had managed to activate her Sharingan about 6 months ago. Itachi was out of the village on a mission. Sasuke didn't mind as he and his brother were not as close as they had been. I am very proud of you son, his mother gave him a kiss on the cheek. He would have preferred she not do that in public, but he would never complain and hurt her feelings. Thank you mom, that means a lot to me. With his family he was willing to show feelings. Nice going Sasuke, Hisa said. Now we have one more ninja in the family. He nodded to her. He really liked Hisa. She had a very different personality from his. She was much more easygoing and willing to show her emotions. But unlike his brother, she had worked with him and helped him train. And unlike his brother, she was no traitor to the clan. Thanks Hisa, I'm going to try to work hard and impress the village. Even now, in a moment that should have been joyous, he was not allowed to forget their low station in the village. People kept a safe distance from them, as though afraid what they had might be contagious. He caught some of the looks the adults were sending him and his loved ones. Let's go home, he encouraged. I don't want to be here another minute. Minato and Naruto were both seated at the dinner table with eager looks. Kaide came out of the kitchen with 2 large steaming bowls on a tray. Congratulations Naruto on your becoming a ninja, I and the entire staff are very proud of you. As Kaide set down the bowls, they both had the same reaction. Yay, ramen. Kaide turned back towards the kitchen with an amused look on her face to get the seconds ready. Having both stuffed themselves with the best ramen in the village, Naruto looked at his father. So Dad, who's going to be in my squad? Minato looked back in innocent surprise. How would I know? Naruto frowned. Didn't you pick who would be on my team? Of course not, son, that's not my job. It falls on the senior instructor to select the squads. Iruka will be the one to decide that. What? You mean you don't know who my team will be? But what if none of my friends are on it? What if Hinata-chan isn't on it? Oh, is that important to you? Minato asked with an inquisitive grin. Being on a team with Hinata? Sure it is. She's my closest friend. He thought about it. You can order Iruka to put her on my team, right? Minato shook his head. Naruto, I am shocked you would even suggest that. Is that the sort of thing a Hokage should do? Take advantage of his position just to please his child. But, Naruto, I would never order Iruka to place Hinata on your team. I see, Naruto put his head down despondently. Minato managed to keep a smile from appearing on his lips. Yesterday, Iruka was not too surprised to be called to the tower to meet with the Hokage. How can I be of service, Hokage-sama? Iruka asked. As if I didn't already know. Minato gave the teacher an easy smile. I'd like to request that Hinata and Naruto be on the same squad. Yes, Hokage-sama, Iruka answered. This isn't an order, he clarified. I would never order you to do something like that. This is just a request from a parent of one of your students. I understand, Hokage-sama. Chapter 7, The Genin Test. Hinata was looking over at him, his hand was tapping the top of the desk in a continuous rapid pace. It was rare to ever see him nervous. Naruto was nothing if not confident. Will you relax, Naruto-kun? There's nothing to be nervous about. But I can't help it, Hinata-chan. He told her. My dad said he has no idea who my teammates will be. What happens if we end up separated? I'm sure that won't happen, Naruto. Hinata placed a hand on his to try and reassure him. My father seems to take it for granted we will be on the same squad. Naruto looked at her hopefully. Does your father know what the assignments are? Well, no, but he doesn't think there's any way we won't be together. Naruto lowered his head to his desk. I'm doomed. Grinning, Hinata patted her head. She really wasn't worried about it. The Hokage had told her father he couldn't imagine the two of them not working together. That was assurance enough for her. It also made her happy to see how important she was to him. Don't worry, Naruto, Ino called out. I'm sure we'll be together. Hinata smiled sweetly. Only in your dreams. Hey. All the conversations quieted down as Iruka and Mizuki entered the room. Iruka was holding a clipboard as he came to stand in front of the class with Mizuki a couple steps behind. Well class, this is the beginning of your ninja careers. It has been a privilege for both me and for Mizuki-sensei to have taught you all and watched you grow into capable young shinobi. I have no doubt each and every one of you will go on to serve Konoha and make the village proud. Iruka announced. I know you're all very anxious, so I will read out the assignments. Once that's done, you are free to go and have lunch for an hour. Then please return here to meet with your senseis. Iruka began to announce the teams and their senseis. As each set of names was announced, Naruto's hopes and anxieties both rose. Each set of names meant it was more likely he and Hinata would end up together. But until he knew for sure, he couldn't relax. Finally, Team 7 will be Namikaze Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, and Inuzuka Kiba. Yes, Naruto cried out joyously. See, I told you there was nothing to worry about, Hinata said. Team 7's Jonin-sensei will be Hitaki Kakashi. All right, Naruto said happily. I train with Kakashi all the time, this is going to be a breeze. Iruka continued on, announcing that Sasuke and Sakura would be on Team 8 with Shino. Sakura looked nervously in Sasuke's direction. He didn't show much reaction to the announcement one way or the other. Yuhi Kurenai would be their sensei. The 10th and final team would be the latest incarnation of the Shika Ino-cho alliance. The news did not make Ino happy as she groaned about karma and buried her head in her hands. For the record, Shikamaru and Choji did not look especially happy either. Once they were dismissed for lunch, Naruto and Hinata approached Kiba, whose little dog was perched on his head. Hey Kiba, looks like we're going to be teammates. How about we all get to know one another over some ramen? It'll be my treat. Akamaru barked his approval and he nodded. Sounds good, I never pass up the chance to get some free food. So together Team 7 left the classroom. Sakura quietly approached Sasuke. Sasuke, since we're going to be a team I thought maybe we should all get something to eat. Neither of us really know Shino that well and he doesn't know us. This would be a good way to get to know one another. He turned to look at her. She more than half expected some kind of rude remark followed by his walking out. All right, let's have lunch. Really? Sasuke nodded. Like you said, we're a team now, we'll need to work together so we may as well start now. Smiling, she nodded, maybe being teammates would allow them to finally get close. After a good meal at Ichiraku's Team 7 returned. They were forced to sit there and watch as 9 other senseis came and collected their teams. They were soon the only ones left in the classroom. Naruto got up out of his seat and went over to the chalkboard. He took a piece of chalk and wrote a message out on the board. We're at the mansion, sensei. Team 7. Okay, let's go, Naruto said. Go where? Kiba asked, confused. Aren't we supposed to stay here until our sensei arrives? He won't be here for another 2 hours, Naruto said with certainty. And how could you know that? Kiba asked. Because I know him. Kakashi was my dad's student and he's been my part-time instructor since I was 4. Naruto said. He is always 2 hours late to everything but missions. If my dad wants to meet him at 1, he has to schedule the meeting for 11. Trust me, he won't be here in less than 2 hours. We'd be better off spending that time at my home planning. Planning for what, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked in surprise. The genin exam, of course, Naruto said nonchalantly. A little more than 2 hours later, Kakashi arrived at the Namikaze mansion to find his team lounging about relaxing. Kakashi tried to put out an angry presence but it didn't seem to work. Naruto looked at Kiba and held out his hand. See, I told you he'd be more than 2 hours late. Yeah, fine, here, Kiba grumbled as he handed over some Ryu notes to Naruto. Naruto, don't tell me you were betting on me being late, Kakashi said. Ah, come on sensei, how often does a guy get to bet on a sure thing? Kakashi's sweat dropped. Why were you so late, sensei? Hinata asked. Well, there was this little old lady who needed to cross a couple dozen streets and I felt I should help her. Grinning, Naruto turned to Hinata and put out his hand. See, I told you he'd make up a ridiculous story about why he was late. Sighing, Hinata took out some Ryu notes. Here, Naruto-kun. Kakashi's sweat dropped again. I'm losing a lot of face here. Okay, let's try this again. For those of you I haven't gotten to know, I am Hitaki Kakashi, your new sensei. Why don't we introduce ourselves? Give me an idea of what you like, dislike, and what your dreams are. I am Hyuga Hinata, the designated heir to my clan. I like pressing flowers, learning new jutsus, and Naruto-kun. I dislike shrill, annoying blonde girls. My dream is to one day be the wife of the Hokage. Huh. Naruto blushed and looked over at his best friend. Isn't the Yondaime sort of old for you? Kiba asked. Oh, I want to marry the 5th Hokage, she said sweetly and put her head on Naruto's shoulder, causing his blush to go even darker. Moving right along, Kakashi said quickly and nodded to Kiba. I'm Inuzuka Kiba and this is my partner Akamaru. The little dog barked. I like running outside and playing with Akamaru. I dislike cats and any food I can't chew. My dream is to be a great ninja and have lots of hot girls all over me. Ah, someone I can relate to, Kakashi thought. And since Naruto and I know each other, we'll skip an introduction from him. Now the first order of business is the genin exam. All 3 of them chorused. For the 3rd time, Kakashi's sweat dropped. Naruto, you've been talking to them about that. Was I not supposed to? Naruto asked innocently. I mean, I was just trying to care for and support my teammates. Kakashi shook his head. Great, he's using my own words against me. If you didn't want me to tell them about the exam, you and Dad shouldn't have told me all those stories. Kiba snorted. Yeah, we know all about it, so don't bother trying to freak us out about the 66% failure rate or the possibility of our being sent back to the academy. We understand the challenge we face and are prepared for it, Hinata said with conviction. An hour and a half earlier. A bell test? Kiba asked. Naruto nodded. That's right, it's like a tradition. The 3rd Hokage gave the test to the legendary Jiraiya and his teammates. He gave it to my father and his team. My father gave it to Kakashi and his squad. He'll definitely give it to us. The important thing to remember is that the whole point isn't to actually get the bells. It's to prove we can act as a team and support one another. Don't panic because there are only 2 bells, so long as we act united we'll pass. I see, well I suppose it's our fault. We should have been more circumspect. He looked at Naruto and smiled beneath his mask. I guess you've outsmarted me, Naruto. Alright, all of you be at training ground 1 at 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow morning. Oh, and don't have any breakfast. Why not? Kiba asked. You'll end up throwing it up if you do. I will see you all tomorrow. He gave Naruto a particular look before going. For some reason Naruto suddenly had a bad feeling about tomorrow's test. He shook it off, he knew Kakashi and what to expect. Alright, let's all meet here around 7 and have a big team breakfast. We'll talk strategy before going over at around 9:30. Naruto said. But Naruto-kun, sensei just said to be there by 8, Hinata objected. Oh, he always says stuff like that, but like I said he's always 2 hours late for everything but missions. His 2 teammates nodded. The next morning they came over and joined Naruto and his father at the breakfast table. For Hinata it was nothing special, but Kiba was a little intimidated upon being introduced to the Hokage. Kaide made a point of cooking up a huge spread for all of them. Bacon, sausage, eggs, potatoes, pancakes, cereal, butter, syrup, milk, juice. The table was weighed down with every sort of food. The 3 of them all ate really well and stuffed themselves. Today's the big test, Minato said as he sipped his tea. The Hokage had only had a bowl of oatmeal as he usually did. Are you nervous, son? No way, Dad. This'll be a breeze. Are you sure, son? Minato asked with a little twinkle in his eyes. The Genin test is usually pretty rough. There's a reason only 1 team in 3 passes it on the first try. Well sure, but that's because they all get caught by surprise, Naruto stated. We know exactly what to expect. Is that so? Kakashi said from behind Naruto's ear. Gah! Naruto jumped out of his seat. When he saw Kakashi standing there he gawked at him, not believing it. Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? You're early. Beneath his mask Kakashi grinned. You do know that I can make it on time when I want to. Naruto, acquiring information to gain an advantage is all well and good, Minato said and sipped his tea. But if the other side knows you have the information they can act accordingly. Naruto saw his dad and his sensei grinning at each other and got a very sick feeling. Kakashi made a show of looking at his wristwatch. Now I believe I told the 3 of you to be at training ground 1 at 8. It is now 7:55. Anyone who is not at the training ground in exactly 5 minutes automatically fails and goes back to the academy. Ah crap! Naruto shouted. Everybody run. They all bolted from the table and raced for the door. Minato and Kakashi were both laughing. They should just make it in time, Minato said between laughs. Yes, and then they'll realize just why they shouldn't have had a big breakfast, Kakashi said gleefully. Ah, this is going to be so much fun. He vanished in a swirl of wind and leaves. Chapter 8, Not the Bell Test. 4 minutes and 50 seconds later. Naruto, Kiba, and Hinata made it onto training ground 1. They had all had to race here as fast as they could and were all drenched in sweat and panting. And now that they had come to a stop their bodies were able to relax. Which was not a good thing. Blee. Naruto doubled over and puked. He hadn't even had a chance to make it to some shrubs or a tree. Vomit poured out of his mouth right there out in the open. The second Kiba saw it he began to gag. He tried to get to some bushes but only made it 2 steps before he felt it coming up his throat. He dropped to both knees and began gagging and puking. Hinata slapped both hands over her mouth and ran for the nearest tree. She couldn't imagine anything worse than throwing up in front of Naruto-kun. Seeing him do it was anything but pretty, she didn't want him to have the mental image of her doing the same. She felt her mouth fill with hot chunky vomit but held it back behind her hands just long enough for her make it to the other side of the tree. There she daintily emptied out her stomach with her head out of Naruto's line of sight. It took a couple minutes for them to finish. When it was done and he didn't have anything left to come up, Naruto staggered away from the mess on the ground and took out his canteen. He swallowed some water, swished it around his mouth and spat it out to try and get the disgusting taste out of his mouth. That's the last time I ever listened to you, Kiba groaned. He'd torn up a handful of grass and was slowly chewing on it. Are you two all right? Hinata asked as she came out from behind the tree. She was dabbing her face with a handkerchief and except for looking a bit pale appeared the strongest of the three of them. Naruto felt his knees shake a little but he nodded. That is the last time I ever listened to you, Kiba grumbled and chewed on some more grass. Well, I see you all made it one time, Kakashi said pleasantly. He had leapt down from some nearby branches. Say, have any of you seen a bucket filled with cold grease? I'm sure I left it around here somewhere. In his right hand he held out a spoon. As if on cue all three of them bent over and started puking again. After about 5 minutes they all seemed to be done. Hinata looked deeply embarrassed as she'd had no chance to hide this time. Naruto sent out a sickly glare. That was mean, Kakashi-sensei. I know, he said with a hidden smile. But it was also really funny. The three students just stared back blankly. Anyway, since we're all here now we'll begin your test. Aren't you at least going to give us a chance to recover? Kiba whined. Kakashi shook his head. A ninja must be ready to act at any time and under any circumstance, including when he feels a little sick. That's fine, Naruto growled and stood a little straighter. We'll pass the bell test and prove to you we belong together as a team. Bell test? Kakashi asked questioningly. Who said anything about a bell test? Oh, Naruto thought. As they watched, Kakashi took out a kunai and nicked his thumb, drawing a little blood. He then performed the summoning jutsu. A small dog that Naruto recognized as Pakun appeared in a puff of smoke. Pakun had a small jacket on. Kakashi took out a folded piece of paper and slipped it into a pocket on the jacket. You know what to do, Kakashi said. The dog looked up at him questioningly. You know this is a real waste of my talent, don't you? Please. Sighing, the dog nodded. Fine, but you owe me, big. Pakun then took off away from the and into the training grounds tree line. Kakashi pressed a setting on his wristwatch. All right, you have 1 hour starting, now. The three students stood there unmoving. What's going on? Naruto asked. Is the test to play hide and seek with Pakun? Not exactly, Kakashi said in a friendly voice. That note I gave Pakun has the message, Team 7 fails, written on it. He's going to try and deliver it to your father in his office in the tower. Your job is to stop him. If he delivers that message in the next 60 minutes you all fail. Crap, Naruto cried out girlishly. We've got to catch him. He, Hinata, and Kiba took off after the little dog. Watching them run, Kakashi giggled. I really ought to get some popcorn. He vanished in a swirl of wind and leaves. Something's wrong, Kiba shouted. He was leading their team at the moment. Pakun was out of sight and they were relying on his nose to guide them. Naruto nodded. He's not heading for the tower. Training Ground 1 was in the southern section of the village, while the tower was in the north near the cliff wall. The straight path to his goal therefore would have taken Pakun almost due north. Instead he was running westward, towards the market quarter. Why is he going in this direction instead? Hinata asked. Who cares? Kiba growled. It's a good thing since it gives us a way better chance of catching him. There's a trick to this, Naruto said. I know it. Kakashi always says a ninja has to look underneath the underneath. So how the hell does that help us? Kiba asked. Whatever direction he's moving now we know where he has to go eventually, Hinata pointed out. The tower, Naruto said. Hinata nodded. I have an idea, I'll go to the tower and act as a last line of defense. You two keep chasing him, if you catch him just rip up the note Kakashi gave him. In the Hokage's office Minato and Kakashi were relaxing. They had tea and a big bowl of buttered popcorn, in front of them was a crystal ball. Sarutobi had passed on the secret of his scrying jutsu to his successor, knowing how useful it could be. It could also be entertaining. Naruto's figured out there has to be a trick, Minato said with a hint of pride. I figured he would, Kakashi said. After all, I did teach him. I taught him more, Minato pointed out. All the more reason he should have suspected something, Kakashi said. He looked at the crystal ball. Oh, this is going to be a good part. Out of the way, Kiba shouted as he ran and dodged through the crowded street. Please pardon us, Hinata yelled. They had finally gotten close enough to spot Pakun. He had immediately dropped from the rooftops down into the busy streets of the market quarter. Being a small dog he was able to scoot past people's feet without much trouble, while his pursuers had to try and avoid the hapless civilians as best they could. As he was passing a vendor selling hot dogs, Pakun leapt up and grabbed one in his jaws before continuing to run on. "Hey!" the man shouted angrily. Pakun chewed his meal and kept running full speed. "I'm sure Kakashi will be happy to pay for this, it's the least he can do given where I'm going." "You're paying for that hot dog," Minato said. "I know." They crossed through the market quarter and on into less crowded parts of the village. "We're still not headed towards the tower," Hinata said. "Where is he going?" A gentle breeze brought a whiff of something and Kiba looked sick. "Is something wrong?" Hinata asked. "I think I know where he's leading us," Kiba spoke grimly. "Where, Kiba-kun? You don't want to know," he said. Akamaru whined agreement. "You know, I never thought about how fortunate it is that this jutsu only relates sight and sound." Chuckling, Kakashi nodded. "If it gave a smell too, that would be a problem." The members of the Inuzuka clan each underwent special procedures that altered their physiology from other humans, even from other ninja. Among the most important difference was an olfactory sense about 100 times stronger than an ordinary human's. Normally this was one of the clan's most prized assets. The Inuzuka were the village's elite trackers and hunter nin. They could pick up trails that were days only and follow them for hundreds of miles. They could follow a single target through a crowd and never lose track of them. They could identify someone instantly by scent no matter how they were disguised. But at times this enhanced sense of scent could be a weakness. Like now, Akamaru was hiding inside Kiba's coat while the boy had both hands clamped over his nose. "Why?" Kiba cried miserably. "Why'd he take us to the garbage dump of all places?" Hinata had a hand over her own nose. While this was unpleasant for her, it was not the misery Kiba was going through. "We've almost caught him. Come on Kiba, it will all be over in a little bit." Leaping through small hills of shifting trash, they closed in on their target. Since coming to the dump, Pakun had been slowed by the poor footing offered by the endless rubbish. Also, he couldn't be enjoying this any more than Akamaru was. They'd been able to close the gap and keep an eye on him without even relying on her Byakugan. Pakun did not make it easy. Several times they almost had him, only to have him dodge away at the last instant and avoid their grasp. Finally though, Kiba managed to drive him around a particular hill of trash where Hinata was waiting. "Got you," she said triumphantly. As her hands passed though his image, he vanished in a puff of smoke. "No way," Kiba cried in disbelief. "He made a bunchin'. Summoned creatures possess chakra and at least the potential to work jutsus that don't use hand signs," Hinata stated. She'd learned that in class. She shut her eyes. Byakugan. Activating her bloodline limit, the veins around her eyes pushed up, giving her an unnatural look. In an instant she was able to search in a 360-degree arc out to 200 yards. "There's no sign of him," she announced. "Aw man, you have got to be kidding me. What do we do now?" "I don't see we have any choice," she said. "Let's head to the tower and hope Naruto can catch him." Kakashi glanced at his watch. 5 minutes to go. Have you ever noticed how these things always seem to go down to the very last minute? Minato said. On the crystal ball was the image of Pakun racing over the rooftops approaching the tower. Yeah, it wouldn't be as interesting if it didn't though. True. Outside the tower 20 Narutos stood guard surrounding the building. Fortunately Pakun had spotted them from a distance. He couldn't smell anything but garbage right now. He figured his ability to smell was shot for a while. Pakun headed for the entrance and dodged away at the last second. One of the clones spotted him and shouted to the others. All 20 began to chase him, desperate to catch him and get that note. From out of a nearby alley the real Pakun emerged and dashed to the doorway. "Sorry Naruto, I really didn't want to be the one who fails you. But you're a little too overaggressive. No hard feelings." People made way for him as he raced up the stairs to the 10th floor where the Hokage and his summoner awaited. Getting to the outer office, administrative assistants watched him as he ran to the office doors where a single Chunin stood guard. "Out of the way. Official business for the Hokage." Pakun shouted and charged past. Before he could reach the door though, the Chunin snatched him up by the collar and brought him up to face level. "Official business, huh? Funny, you don't look like a normal messenger. You had better put me down or I'll bite you," Pakun warned. With a grin the Chunin pulled the piece of paper in his jacket out and unfolded it. He laughed when he saw the only thing written there was a smiley face. "Hey, give that back to me or I'll tell the Hokage you interfered with official state business. I think Dad will forgive me." There was a puff of smoke and the Chunin was revealed to be none other than Naruto. "And why do you smell so bad?" The office doors opened and Minato stepped out with Kakashi. A tiny beeping came from Kakashi's wristwatch. "And that's 1 hour, looks like you and your team passed Naruto." "Congratulations son." The Hokage happily rubbed his son's head. "Thanks dad, thanks sensei," Naruto said proudly. Later that night Minato hosted a party for the Hyuga and Inuzuka clans as they celebrated their children becoming genin of the village. After Hinata and Kiba went home and took baths of course.